stream where we talk about photography and catch up with the community, see how everybody's doing. And yeah, today's a much later start than usual. I went out this morning with the photo club with David Crooks, and we did some shooting at an event called the Drift Nirvana, which is basically a bunch of cars going in a figure eight and trying to spin out. So it's a lot of fun. A little scary this time because we were much closer to the track uh, than the last time I went, and there's no barriers at all. So they could just spin out right into the crowd. I mean, I was probably only 20 feet off from the track. In fact, there was one time a car kind of spun around a little bit into the grass, and the dirt kind of flew up into my face a little bit. I mean, that's how close we were. It's pretty scary a couple of times, at least for me. But for the most part, everything went well, and man, I burned through 6,000. Yeah, I think 6,000 shots on the OM3, and I still had about 30% battery life left when I was done. And I also brought the Sony A7R5, and the battery went dead, and it's still loading all the images. I don't know how many shots I captured on that one, but I was shooting with the two cameras side by side using the automobile detect. And my gut feeling is the OM3 was doing a better job at acquiring focus or recognizing the car and then start taking pictures. So we'll see when I start calling through the images if I actually got more shots in focus than I did with the Sony. The only challenge with picking up the cars driving around the track was some of them generated a lot of smoke, either from the tires or some of it looks almost artificially generated. I don't know if they do that on purpose or not, like make more smoke than they're supposed to. Or let me rephrase that. They're making more smoke out of the car than would actually happen otherwise, just with the tires, skidding on the pavement. It's kind of a new thing for me. This is the only second time I've ever been to an event like this. So it was good practice, and I was finding that when I was going at shutter speeds below 1/500th of a second, uh, in general, I was not getting sharp images because the car was just moving a little bit too much to get a sharp image. David said he wasn't having any problem. He was going down to 1/30th of a second because he said he was good at panning. But I wasn't panning too many shots because the cars were either coming straight on and then spinning within that same sort of area versus, not too many cars were going straight across, horizontally against my focal plane. In which case, I am pretty good at panning, but my challenge was, I think, just when the cars were starting to spin, I could not get. I mean, I'm sure there's some. Like I said, I haven't gone through the images yet. There's 6,000 of them. In fact, Lightroom is still importing the ones from the Sony card, and I started 30 minutes ago. I've already finished the OM3, and I imported those just using Adobe Bridge. But the Sony I just imported using Lightroom. But so that's what I did this morning. So my voice is a little bit hoarse. I'm really tired. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning, and then it's been pretty much full on 110% of my energy going to that. Even driving in the car back was, David. I rode with David. He has a pickup truck, and you know how trucks are. I almost broke my neck on one of the turns, I tell you. But anyhow, it was a good time. So thanks again, David, for driving this morning. And uh, so I'll once it's done loading everything, I'll share a few images from today if I can. So let me go ahead and dandruff. I'm gonna have to go back to my head and shoulders. Anyhow, so let me catch my breath a minute. I literally, I just this is I got home about 30 minutes ago, and uh, had to take Ellie out for a little bit, take care of her, and now I'm back here sitting down. I'm gonna get some water. I'm a little dehydrated too, because when I go to restaurants, we had lunch. I'm so cheap. I just will not buy drinks when I go to a restaurant unless it's water. And sometimes even the water isn't free. But I didn't get any water this time when I ate. So this is really the first drink I've had since breakfast. Is this one glass of water? Mm. So I apologize for that. But things we do for our photography, right? It was really exciting to go, as always, meeting up with friends and having a good time with our cameras. Okay, so let me go up to the top here and see. I see Darko's here. Hey, Darko. Doing well, doing well. It's been a busy weekend. It's going to be a busy week between now and May 4th. So actually, let me go ahead and share. There's a link in the description below to a workshop that I'll be attending. I won't be one of the instructors. I'll just be attending, just like one of you guys. So it's really probably one of the second workshop, but this is the first serious workshop I've been to ever in my photography. And probably, you know, my money would have been better spent on workshops than buying all these cameras you see behind me. Oh, but I look forward to that. So let me give you the information. I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago with the instructors. They're all OM system ambassadors that are going to be holding the workshop and sponsoring it starting May 2nd. And it's going to be like 3 days, 4 hours each or something. Uh, let me just find the information real quick. I want to just get some admin stuff out of the way and also share what I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. Because I always love to meet new people, especially viewers from the channel. It's always a lot of fun to meet you guys. Okay, here we go. So this is the workshop, and so it's going to be landscape, birding, macro, primarily with the four ambassadors, Lisa and Tom, Frank, and I think his name is Ben. I just my memory's so bad. But here's the general schedule. 5:30 to 9:30. Oh, so it's actually 8 hours on Saturday, and then another 4 hours again on Sunday, and then some post and pre Zoom type calls. So bird, macro, and again, there's a link in the description. The retreat is $6.99, but there is a $50 coupon that they wanted to give for my viewers. So you can use that coupon code, and that's also down in the description of this live stream as well. So I hope you guys can make it, and I hope to see you all there, or as many as possible. Whew. Okay, and I see. And Dargo says, did some test shots on the macro rig I showed you, and I'm looking forward to some flower and bug shots. Oh yeah, springtime is all about flowers, right? And bees. I've been posting a lot of flower shots. I picked up the 60 millimeter macro. I bought it used in mint condition for $314 plus tax. It came to like the $330. I don't know why I waited so long to get this lens. Primarily because I was pretty happy with just using extension tubes and diopters. The macro, like I guess Raynox is a popular brand. People put I have a generic one. I've been pretty content with that and getting decent results. But now that I have this lens, it's actually a lot easier to do macro type photography, especially if I want to do in-camera focus stacking. This is this is really a time saver. So I'll try and do some videos on this and talk about this switch because I get a lot of questions about this switch, and until now I've never been able to answer any questions. But I said I don't know what the switch is for. I don't have that lens, right? So here we are, almost 10 years later, and I finally got this lens. Um, so this is exciting for me anyway. And David's here. Good to see you, David. David and I were there. Uh, I just saw him like less than an hour ago. And Marsha, good to see you. David Black, Tim Adams. Let's see. Tim said, "Good morning, everyone. I'm super happy with DxO Photo Lab, but not so much the clone and heal tools. Any thoughts on a cheap alternative to Photoshop to handle these chores?" Honestly, I don't think any cheap alternatives would be any better. Uh, but I haven't tried a whole lot of other things. I know Lightroom, Photoshop are really good at it. I mean, they're not perfect, but they're certainly better than Photolab at doing these kinds of things. And I think they're working on it though. I'm gonna start looking at some new tools, uh, because I'm an affiliate, right? They send me like advances to some tools. We'll see if it makes any difference. I really don't know. I haven't looked at it that closely. Maybe there's no difference than what we're getting now, but I know, Tim, you go to a lot of you attend a lot of my live streams for photo editing. So what you saw me doing there is the best that I can do with the clone and heal tools. And it is what it is. They're very rudimentary tools uh, relative to Photoshop, right? Photoshop is really good at that, and Lightroom. And John follows, the great Vanzini. Good to see you guys. Randy, good to see you. Oh, Randy has some tips here. He says, my workflow is now Affinity Photo, Topaz Photo AI, and then Affinity back to Affinity. Okay. One-time purchase, $70, Topaz at 200. Yeah. I mean, most software now is not that cheap, except Affinity is really cheap. I paid only $25 for mine on a Black Friday, but it's the previous version, like version 1 point something. So it's their basic tool set, but it has layers, it has focus stacking, it has all kinds of tools in it that are really, really handy. Affinity did a really good job in creating a very cheap alternative to Photoshop, or I'm sorry, Photoshop and Lightroom for that matter. But like DxO, it does not have really a cataloging system. And I can take it or leave it, the cataloging system in Lightroom. I try not to depend on it. In fact, I don't need to rely on it at all because I just use my own folder structure in on my drive to manage my photos, and then I use the projects uh, settings in DxO if I need to do some specific temporary type things. I know the projects can be used for long-term cataloging, quote unquote, in DxO, but I primarily use it myself for short-term projects like doing reviews on products here, or tutorials, etc. And Randy says, I'm loving my new M1 Mark One. My bird photography has jumped tenfold. Yeah, from your EM1X that you had before, it is really still a significant improvement. Even though the EM1X had bird detect, the problem with the EM1X when I used one for a couple of weeks is that they tied the tracking feature together with the subject detect. And these two features are very different in how they identify subjects and track them. Subject detect tracks everything frame by frame, so it tries to identify each frame where the subject is. Whereas the tracking feature is more of a general shape and color and lighting of an object that it first acquires, and then it tries to track that. And how these two things work together, I'm not sure exactly what takes priority or if they share data with each other. I mean, But needless to say, the OM1 with just simple subject detect without the tracking works really well. I haven't tried subject detect plus tracking and compare that to, choosing one over the other. But I hear the tracking's improved, but I haven't experimented with it because currently I am just, happy as all with just the subject detect alone. And Jeff Painter, hello, good to see you. Um, you're still importing images. Yeah, mine finished importing. Now it's just, how Lightroom cataloging is. Now it's cataloging things or whatever. That's why I like to use Adobe Bridge because it's just a simple import, right? It just brings it in. Um, whereas when you import it with Lightroom, there's a lot of overhead there. Very useful tools, for finding and calling images. But with all of that power of the catalog that Lightroom has comes all of the overhead with it. And Chris says, I have a question. When shooting RAW plus JPEG, if I expose based on the JPEG looks in the camera screen, will my RAW file end up improperly exposed? No. The JPEG is going to look different than the RAW, but the exposure is going to be identical. So, for example, the JPEG image will typically have a little more saturation and a little bit more contrast. So the bright areas will be brighter, the darker areas will be a little bit darker because it applies just by default a standard curve on the tone. And that setting can be adjusted using the gradation setting, but just leave it on normal. If you're primarily a JPEG shooter, then you should experiment with the gradation setting, and then also the highlight and shadow settings as well. So you can tweak the JPEGs uh, to your liking, either in general or image by image, because you can adjust these things on the fly. Typically, I just leave everything on normal because I like to edit the raw images, but uh, the raw images will tend to look a little bit darker and a little bit flatter than the JPEG image, like meaning less contrast, less saturation, and a little bit darker because it's applying, it's just basically not applying any curve, so you're getting the linear data of the image. And let's see. I'm shooting on the PenF and usually JPEG, but I kind of want to have my RAW files too to try and post-process. Okay. So yeah, on the PenF, definitely there's, the JPEGs, the exposure will be identical, but the RAWs are going to look a little darker. So you put your M1X and 12 to 100 plus SD cards. Well, I'm sure there's someone here that'll buy that 12 to 100 off you. So if you want people to make offers to you on your 12 to 100 and the M1X for that matter, you're welcome to solicit here if you want. I don't want to make it kind of like a stream about people coming and start soliciting all the gear they want to sell. But, Randy, you've been here a long time. So I'm happy to share this platform with you if you'd like to sell anything. Okay, this one time. Okay. And just posted on my YouTube channel a slow-mo video, which I can only do on a TG5. Okay. And yeah, by the way, Randy does have a YouTube channel called Ride Along with Randy, same name that you see here on the stream. He does mostly you're driving around in your car a lot in the desert, looks like. Sake Borsma says Olympus. Since my first contact with photography was Olympus, Olympus is an amazing brand. I agree. I agree. I mean, it is the camera that I grab, you know, almost 99% of the time. The only time I really grab my other cameras is uh, for testing out different lenses that manufacturers send me. If they would send me Micro Four Third lenses, I would test those. but all I'm getting are like Sony and Fuji, and they offer Nikon and L mount, but I rarely get Micro Four Third lenses from third parties, which is ironic because that's my primary focus here on this channel is Micro Four Thirds. You'd think they'd pick up on that, but uh, you know, the Sony, like I said, I brought the Sony today because I'm testing a new lens, not because I really needed to shoot with that today. I was more than happy with the OM3, but it was nice to have a little comparison between the two for the subject detect. And just the gut feeling was the OM system was doing a better job at the car detect. And 6,000, yeah. And I slowed my frame rate then. I was shooting an SH2, but I turned it down to 12.5 frames per second. But I think we were shooting for a couple hours, right? And I got so many duplicate shots of the same car, you know, going around the track because you never know when they're gonna really get that spin and smoke and all of that. So you have to kind of start, you know, continuous shutter with every turn of one car. And if I take 6,000, divide that by 12.5, that's 480 seconds divided by 60. So 6,000 images, that's basically 8 minutes of shooting. That's it, 8 minutes, right? And I shot RAW plus JPEG, and it took about 180 gig on my memory card, give or take, just for reference. And Randy said, I posted new photos on my Flickr. Okay. So I did see that one of the crow that you took, Randy, or a blackbird of some kind. I can't distinguish between crows and other blackbirds, but that was cool. Oh, your TC should not be soft. Mine is tack sharp. I don't have any issues with my teleconverter. And Semjon says, I really have bad gas about the OM3, but I'm going to wait for a good deal. If it drops to 1,500, I'm going to sell my OM5 and a few lenses. I don't use it and get it. Yeah, so I'm seeing them in Japan for 1,600 to 1,700, about 1,800 if you want to get it with the 12 to 45 kit. So they're coming down. Um, I would say if you can get it for 1,600, I would get it. I haven't seen it that low here in the US. And if I order from Japan, I think I'll have to pay a 10% tariff on it. I don't really know exactly how the tariffs are going now, but I have held off from buying from Japan. I got lucky with this lens. I didn't have to pay any tariff on this one because there's an $800 exemption for items under $800, but that's going to expire soon. I think May 2nd. So if you're thinking about ordering anything from Japan, uh, I would, or China for that matter, anything under $800. It's maybe a little too late. May 2nd is just around the corner. It may be too late to really be confident that you'll avoid any tariff. But I don't know. If you live here in the US, I don't know what it's like in other countries right now. Oops, thanks Randy and John for the tips. Okay. Head and Shoulders, yeah. Uh, you're gonna make a video comparing your feeling between the EM1X and the OM1. Okay, look forward to that. And you think you have a bad TC? It's possible. You really shouldn't be having any issues with that. I mean, it's not. I mean, it does. You do lose just a hair resolution with the TC, but you have to pixel peep to see it. For most images using the TC, It's perfectly fine, and with a little bit of editing, there's no I can't tell a difference with or without a teleconverter. And I guess that is possible. Make sure the shutter speed is high enough. I start at 1/2000th of a second. 'Kay, I'm not sure. You're not referring to the cars because when we were out there shooting the cars this morning, you told me you were at like 1/30th of a second. I figured out a new perch feeder in the backyard and shoot through open windows in the living room. I use OM to capture it straight to the computer. Oh, wow. Wow. I guess with your back and the things you're going through now, that makes a lot of sense for you, right? And it doesn't matter what the weather is, you'll be comfortable. Not that the weather's ever that bad out there, not like here. I can't tell you how many times I froze my fingers off in the wintertime taking pictures of birds just in my backyard. And I'm excited for the Astro Summer. Yeah, definitely it's the deep sky targets aren't quite as exciting, but in the summertime you get the Milky Way, which is really nice. In regards to macro, I had for my Fuji cams reversal rings for a lens with good light. Yeah, I have a reversal lens for my Nikon, but I haven't used that thing in 10 years probably since I switched over. And and David, you only end up with 4600. Wow. Between my two cameras, I I don't know how. Let me see what the final count was on the Sony. The Sony was 4006. Well, that's half JPEG. So about 2300 on the Sony. I'm sorry, wait a minute. 1300 images on the Sony, and I took 6000 images on the uh, OM3. And the Sony shoots only at like 6 frames per second, something like that. So it's not great. Here are the Sony images that kind of came up. They look okay, and I was shooting with a prime because I'm testing out a prime lens, the 75 f2. Let's see if this is sharp. Yeah, see, I got motion blur because if you look at this plane of focus here, the plane of focus is right on the car, but this is motion blur, and I'm at 1/350th of a second. And because I was in silent shutter, I'm getting rolling shutter. See that? This car is warped. So yeah, that's too bad. Rolling shutter. I'm trying not to use mechanical shutter because if I ever decide to sell this camera, I don't want to rack up the shutter count on it. I think I'm still under 10,000 clicks. Let's see what else we got. How about this one? This one's at 1/350th of a second. Again, a rolling shutter issue. It's not as bad on this one though. And the focus is here on the door, but not on the grill. Maybe it's on the drivers. That's why. That would be kind of cool if it actually did that. Oh, and you can see the little drone up here. And this image was I was shooting in APS-C mode sometimes. So let me see. This was an APS-C mode. So I'm at 24 megapixels with an effective focal length of 112 millimeters. Oh, let's see. How about this shot? Yeah, this one is motion blur. Not good. Motion blur and rolling shutter. Let me see if I have any that are at faster than one. Let's see what 1/500th. 1/500th of a second. Okay, that one is sharp. No motion blur. Let's take a similar shot like this one. Yeah, that one is tack sharp also. But look at the rolling shutter. Oh my God, these trees are all bent over. So I was panning, and there's the drones. Somebody has a drone that follows these cars around. Oh, this is brutal. Okay, so let me go to and get the OM3. Oh, wait a minute. No, 2300 images in RAW. Where are the OM3 photos? I imported them. Where the heck are they? Let me go back to Bridge. So if I import, it should be in the same folder, second quarter. Oh, because I use Bridge to import these. That's why. So they're not in Adobe yet. They're in Photolab. All right. Anyway, I'll come back to that when it's done loading. Whoops, sorry. Okay. I've been lucky to use CS6 Photoshop, a very old Nick collection with Nikon's for free editor, but I've tried free AI tools for some final edits. The CS6 clone tools and brushes are sufficient. Okay. And still struggling with the 15mm 1.7 for composition. As much as I like it, the 25 or 45 feel much more natural to me in their usage is hard learning curve. Yeah, because with the 15 you have to take more into the composition, right? Th- But just simplify it. And by that I mean just break the picture down. If you just want to I'm not talking about being creative or anything. I'm talking about just trying to get a composition. Okay? So look for where the light is. Where is the light coming from? The simplest way is the light behind you or is it in front of you? So are you going to have a backlit subject, front lit, or is the light coming from the side? So look at where the light's coming from and then think about the shadows that are coming off the main subject that you want to take a picture of. Are the shadows going in the direction that you want? Uh, and it also helps you think about what kind of exposure you want. So, and this will come very naturally to you. As soon as you look at a scene, in a split second, you'll know exactly the exposure that you want for the scene based on the light. And then the next thing you look at is, you want to kind of look at the layers, right? So you found your subject, you found the lighting on your subject, you want to look at the layers in the scene. So simple three-layer, foreground, midground, background, right? So what's in the foreground in front of the subject? Or is the subject in the foreground? What's in the middle? Typically, you want the subject to be in the middle, right? But, we're talking about standard composition things, nothing creative. And then look at the background. Is the background really busy and distracting that it's hard to see the subject in the foreground or midground? Or does it complement the subject either with the lighting, the patterns, the color? Uh, so for example, you have a red rose, right? And then you have a greenish grassy background. That's a nice complementary color. So that's where the colors are complementing each other. And it may not matter how busy the background is because the colors are so complementary and stark. So think about foreground, midground, background, right? And that's pretty much it, right? That's all I think about when it comes to composition. Am I going to have these elements in the scene? Yes. When you're talking about wide angle, right? Uh, and then and then look at all of the things in the scene. What kind of information does this image portray? What's the story of this image? Uh, that's what I would do, right? And then once those things kind of come, those three or four those three things, right, should come within a split second of looking at a scene at the 15 millimeter wide, really with any focal length. But those are the things that should come within a split second. So once you kind of get good at that, then you can start thinking about being creative and look for inspiration from some of the masters of photography, depending on what kind of photography you're shooting. If it's street photography, which is typical for that focal length, uh, look at the masters and look at how they compose and put together their elements of a scene. Because some photographers are really good at layering and piecing things together like a puzzle. Some photographers are really good at, or not really good at, let me rephrase that. They take advantage or consider mostly the lighting, right? How is the lighting contrasting with the subject? And then, some photographers, they like to look at the color. Everybody has their own creative choices when it comes to their final image and story that they want to tell, the kind of feeling and mood that they want to give. And so shooting wide should, you can break it down into those simple things. What is the subject? What is the where's the lighting? And then what are the layers in the photo? And I'm just saying with three basic layers, you could have one layer, you could have two layers. One layer would be something like just a building with one window, right? Uh, it's just that's it, the side of a building with a window, or a red door with yellow brick. That's one dimension. There's nothing in the foreground, background, but you're just working with color and geometry. But usually when I talk about composition, to get it's good to try to think about it in those three layers, and then think about the information that's in the scene. Do they complement each other? Do they contradict each other? And with those complements and contradictions, what kind of story do they tell in their relationship to the subject? So if you see, for example, a family sitting out front of an ice cream shop, right? So there's kind of a little story right there. But then, um, look at the different colors of ice cream and the flavors I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. But yeah, just when it comes to storytelling, that's a whole different layer. I would do that. I would probably, for me, that would be something I think about last. Because I'm a very methodical, analytical type person. That's why I like architectural photography, because I can just concentrate on lines, angles, and composition of those lines and angles, and then layering if needed. I don't have to worry about layering so much, um, other than if the object itself is three-dimensional, that there's many layers. Then I have to think about a composition that will highlight those different layers of a building. So depending on the architecture, if it's a typical residential, maybe there's a nice big porch, and then there's the front face and the door. The door is the most important thing. And then you kind of look at the roof line. Is the roof line a solid straight angle? Is it flat? Or are there multiple levels of the roof, right? And then I think about those things anyway. But I don't think about it so much as soon as I see something, all of these things come together very quickly. And all I have to think about is, okay, what story do I want to tell about this very interesting shape and composition? Because sometimes, you have a great composition, good lighting, good layering, but there's no story, right? You'll have a boring, just snapshot image of something. So, story for me has to come last. I have to be able to put together the elements of the composition in that order, and that once that becomes almost second nature, I can concentrate. I can look at the scene and then immediately start thinking about a story that I want to tell. Okay. Anyway, Sorry, I won't dwell on that too long. If you look at my photography, okay, clearly I don't lead by example. My photography is not that great, but that's how I think about photography and composition and what I try to tell people to do when they're just starting out with their compositions. And Aaron says, use my one 3 for the first time, but Lightroom can't open the raw files. It should be able to. If you have the new Lightroom subscription model, you may need to do an update, but Lightroom opens up all of my raw files without any issues. So I cannot. I mean, if Lightroom imports the images, it should be able to edit them. If it's not importing the images, then that could be the issue, right? It's not able to recognize that particular camera model. But if it's importing them, I would think it should be able to edit them. So make sure you have the latest update. And if you have an older version that's not on a subscription model, then it's never going to be able to uh, edit those files. They're not going to update it to make OM3 editable. So what you have to do is you have to find a workaround. So if you watch my video on, let me share that video with everyone. Okay, it's um, let me get the link. DxO photo. Okay, so let me share this. Let me share this link. It's a very recent video. But what you do, I explain everything in there, but you want to download something called EXIF GUI and change the model number of the camera to something that Lightroom does know how to edit. But it has to be the same sensor. So the OM3, the OM1 Mark II use the same exact sensor, and the OM1 Mark I. So try changing it to OM1 or OM1 Mark II, and all that's in the video, and see if Lightroom can edit that. But you have to delete them out of the Lightroom catalog and re-import them with the new EXIF data, because Lightroom stores its own cataloging system, and it's going to say, okay, these are OM3 files, I can't edit these. So you're going to have to delete them out or move them to another hard drive, then bring them back in. But just remove them from Lightroom and re-import them. And after you've done this EXIF GUI tool thing, and it should work. It should work. Now, if the version of Lightroom that you have does not edit even OM1 files, that's going to be a problem. Because the key to making it work is it has to be the same exact sensor and processor camera. So OM1, OM1 Mark II, OM3 all use the same sensor and processor. There's going to be still a problem with OM1 Mark I files because only with the high-res shot mode. The high-res shot mode files are 12-bit for the OM1 Mark I, and they're 14-bit for the OM3 and OM1 Mark II. So Lightroom is going to you're going to import them and they're going to look too bright in Lightroom. So all you have to do is reduce the exposure. But it's because of that incompatibility in the high-res shot. But for regular raw files, that should work. And let's see. Let me go back up. My chat jumped all the way down. I wonder, I saw a setting here. It says auto scroll is enabled. Your message will automatically scroll to display the most recent. So I need to disable the auto scroll somehow. Toggle rounded, toggle name. I should have done this years ago, but I just found it. I don't see any setting here to toggle. There's nothing. Well, I have to do it next time. For now, I'm gonna have to scroll up and down to find things. Uh, just back from, okay, I'm almost there. Oh, Marco is here. Hey, Marco, how are you? Good to see you. Uh, okay, now I'm back to where I was. So Marco came in, and then David, I will have to check it out. Oh, I don't know what that is about. Can't wait for warmer weather. Yes. And Darko says also picked up a J1 Nikon with the 10 to 30 pocket system. I'm told the CX sensor could do 1/16,000. It has tracking and electron. Oh, that'll be fun to try. But these old cameras, they have all these features, but then the execution is a different thing, right? So good luck with that. And Robert's here. Good to see you, Robert. Your brother Michael reached out to me. He should be in town. I told him to let me know so we can get together. And Randy says, I shoot SH2 at 25 FPS. Yeah. Think about it. If I shot at 25 FPS, I would have like 10,000 pictures or 12,000 pictures instead of 6,000, right? Because I shot at 12.5 frames per second. Oh, excuse me. I'm I'm dealing with uh, I'm really tired. And Robert said, just back from Paris, took my own one in Pen F, ended up using Pen F 80% of the pics. Really? Mostly with the 14 to 42, 17-25, and 41. Yeah, that's a great setup. The kit lens with a couple of primes and short telephoto. Excellent setup. And the crow was amazing. Yes, I saw that. Crows and ravens have different beaks. Okay. I'll have to look at that a little closer one day. And the gray van scene, wow, I'd struggle sorting through 400 JPEGs for a fairly short video. Oh, 3 or 4. I'm going to have 6,000 images. I'm going to try and cull it down to about less than 200. Otherwise, I'd fill up a terabyte drive every day, or every week. And Wayne is here. Good to see you, Wayne. And Simjan says, also don't know if I ever did, but I wanted to say thank you. Your videos helped me so much in the last year since I started. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm always happy to help best I can. And I keep getting requests to do more vlogging and stuff, so I'm going to try and do that too. I recorded a bunch of video today, but I didn't. It's not for vlogging so much as for another video. Because, like I said, I got to review this lens on this Sony. It's a nice lens, though. It's really nice, but most of the lenses they send me, I'll keep one or two out of every 5 or 6 that I get because I just don't use that camera that much. If I use that camera a lot, I would probably keep every lens they sent me to review. But I usually trade them in and get something else that I want instead. Like I bought the OM3 after, or I bought the Deluxe 8, trading in a bunch of lenses to get that camera. I love that Deluxe 8. It's so expensive now. But I paid full list price, but now it's selling for even more than that. And I didn't buy it for that. I don't buy cameras as like collectible, like to sell them later to make money off them. They're just for me to enjoy. And Anthony said there's some people fishing for smelts in Pistol Bay and spot a polar bear 100 yards away coming out of the woods on the other side of. Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, where Anthony lives, they have polar bears. I'd be a little frightened, man. Maybe just found loose screws on both TCs, tighten them up. Ooh, maybe that'll work. But once things are out of alignment, and I don't know. If they were loose, that implies maybe it's been opened up before. That's a tough call. And took a photograph of bald eagle last Sunday. The lens was stopped down. One stop and I shot at 1/5000th of a second, ISO 2000. Slight blurry, my fault. I did not use a tripod to stabilize a heavy lens. Yeah, because you have that 150 to 600 lens, right? So if you're at 600 millimeters, the shutter speed is good, but at that focal length, it would still be easy to get a blurry shot because that focal length combined with the very fine pixel pitch on the OM1, you have the OM1 Mark II. It can, yeah. Trust me, I'm there. I'm with you on that. It can be tough. I'm usually 1/2000th of a second, sometimes 1/4000th. And yeah, I'm still seeing tiny bit of motion blur time to time. Just finished some major backups, yeah. Oh, I haven't backed up in a couple of weeks. I need to do that again soon. And my next purchase should be a good heavy duty carbon monopod for my 150 to 600. I can always use it as a hiking stick. Yes, there's some very good ones out there. Gitzo is probably a good brand for carbon fiber, heavy duty tripod. So I'm going to try some landscapes with focus stacking. Yeah, that's I tried to do a little bit of that, very recently. I have to practice some more. And Adam says, "Oh wow, hello Rob Trek from Central. Hey Adam, how are you? Good to see you here." And said, "You found a bigger silicone cup for my OM1. Good, good." I mean, that really the eye cup on the OM1 and my OM3, they're not the most comfortable. They're rubber, but they're kind of a hard rubber. I've had cameras before where the rubber is much softer. I think even my Sony has a pretty soft eye cup. Let me see. Yeah, the Sony's a little bit softer but thinner, so it kind of balances out. But oh, it's the Fuji. Ah, this Fuji has a really soft. Look how big that eye cup is. No, it's not even this one. The Fuji's okay. I forget which camera it was. One camera I had, well, yeah, the one on the OM1 and the OM3 here, they're hard. It's hard rubber. Okay, and I'm gonna stop there with that. Said, no, Rob, you make some really interesting images. I don't know. If we go to my okay, look at my Instagram. Let's just be real. Okay. When I'm doing flowers, what's my style here? Fill the frame. These are all focus stacked images, these four. We go down, I'm filling the frame, filling the frame, filling the frame. Okay, this is just a wide panel. That ant. Let me make this larger. Okay, the ant, I'm filling the frame, filling the frame. That's my style. I do portraits. I fill the frame. Birds. I fill the frame. I mean, I'm just I don't feel like I have any style at all other than filling the frame. Okay, this one is mildly interesting. Okay, this one I put a little thought, okay? I'll take a little credit for that one. Filling the frame, filling the frame, filling the frame, filling the frame. Okay? This was not my idea. This is an interesting shot, but not my idea. I can't take credit for this. This was another I was just sort of helping this photographer with their flash photography. I was not there as the photographer for that shoot. Uh, I'm, you know what? Nothing is great. Okay, this one I'll take a little credit for. I had to think about the composition a little bit, right? And there's layers here. This is in the foreground, midground, background is the sky, right? So there's 3 layers here. There's an interesting composition. So that's not bad. This is very cliche, okay? Nothing special there. This is a good layered one. Oops. Oh, sorry about that. I accidentally jumped. Let me go back up. Oh, this is another good one. This time the subject is in the foreground. Then the midground is these buildings and the street. Then the background is again is the sunset. And then we have some good geometry with leading lines. But again, this is very derivative. This is not original. This is not creative. This is a perfectly uh, usable shot, right? And filling the frame. This is the last time I went to that drifting. You know, here's another one. Subjects here in the foreground for the middle ground, and then the background is, the sky and the lighthouse. So I do practice what I preach to some extent when I'm not doing my simple fill the frame type photography. Here's another one. Foreground, middle ground, background with backlighting, right? So I'm paying attention to where the lighting's hitting on the subjects and the shadows. Let's see, some self-portraits, fill the frame, fill the frame, fill the frame. Okay, double exposure. Whoops, I keep hitting boost post. Anyway, that's my photography. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not impressed with my photography. I don't think anybody that has any skill in creativity and somebody that's really good at has a really good eye is not going to be impressed by that Instagram account. I mean, a lot of the shots I post there are simply for educational purposes. Okay, this is what you can do with the OM3 using in-camera focus stacking. These are the kind of results you can get. And then you take it from there and try to apply your own creative technique. Uh, and I know people say I'm being too critical or too harsh on my own photography, but uh, when I look at the work of other photographers and the kind of things and how original they are. Okay, let me show you. And I'm not talking about just the masters. I'm talking about even current photographers. Let me show you one. Her name is, I think it's Anya. On, yeah, Anya. Okay. Oops, I'm sorry. Go to this girl's account. 81,000 followers. Okay? No YouTube or nothing, just Instagram. She did a photo recently. Look at this one. I mean, most of them are self-portraits, and a lot of them, I would say, are about at least 80% original, meaning there's no AI here involved. She's using AI a little bit more now, but a lot of the photos are about 80, 90% original. She makes her own props. She comes up with the concept and then she executes it. Uh, like, let's see, this is a short video. Sometimes she's so she gives behind the scenes also of some of her photo shoots. Let's see, where's one that has behind the scenes? Not that one. Okay, here's one with a behind the scenes, right? She's got this giant blueberry. Now this one she did do a little bit of layering, but this is the original shot straight out of camera, more or less. And instead of a blueberry, she has just a blue paper balloon or whatever, right? And then she used Photoshop of this blueberry. I guess that's a blueberry. And then just pasted it in there. Okay, so where's another good one? I love this one. This is one of my favorites. This paper boat. So let me go back to the top. I'm gonna put her link in the chat. Uh, so I really appreciate all the compliments you guys are giving me on my photography. You guys are way too kind. Look at somebody like that. Look at any of the great masters of photography in the past. And then look at the crap that I put on Instagram, relatively speaking. There's no comparison. The level of photography, creativity, it's like this, right? It's huge. But that's the fun of photography. That's why we do this, right? We enjoy capturing images and trying to tell our story and show how we see the world through our eyes through photography. And and that's why I always say, talking about gear and talking about photography are two different subjects. They're not the same thing. When we talk about gear, we talk about how can it capture images? The how, not the why. The why is up here. Why are you taking the photo? Right? That's what Joe Edelman taught me. Right? Why are you taking Joe Edelman? Another amazing instructor. Probably one of the best instructors on that, in my opinion. Um, but why are you taking the photo? Right? Talking about gear is the how. Photography is the why. And what? What is as Robin Wong says, what are you taking this picture for? What is it? What are you taking a picture of, etc. Right? Okay. Let's see. I got to figure out how to get this chat to stop auto scrolling. I'm going to do that before the next stream because apparently there's a setting somewhere. I don't know where it is. Uh, Mark says, I found my TC just not worth it. I'm just too picky, I guess. Okay. That TC is practically glued to my lens for me, and I'm very, very happy with the images. Now, that said, it is a little sharper without the TC. And there's an argument to be made, just crop in a little more instead of using a TC, and the results are the same. And that's pretty true, right? But I prefer the TC rather than cropping in. And Eric is here. Good to see you. At the playground, sitting at a shady bench watching photography as my daughter plays. Cool. The beautiful afternoon, a little chilly though, a little windy. I was so cold this morning. I did not dress for the kind of weather that we encountered, let me tell you. David David walked all the way back to his car to get his hand warmers and came back. So that's why he only got like 4,000 images and I got 6,000. Is that time it took him to go back to his car and come back? I took, almost 2,000 images, which is what? Like 1 minute of actual shooting time, right? Uh, oh, yeah, I talked about that. And Gray Vanzina says, I have weird brain chemistry. I look at the 17 and I think it looks like a 17 wide with the edges cut off. Same with the super tellies, but not mid lenses like a 50. I have no idea what you're talking about. That is, I don't know. That whole sentence was weird to me. I'm not following along. Partially because I'm really tired, so my brain is not, and I'm very dehydrated actually. And Anthony says, "Do you use a monopod when using?" Yes. I would say I just started doing it though with my mini gimbal. So the judgment is the I'm still haven't passed judgment on whole setup yet of using a monopod because I've been hand holding all this time and I've only recently started using a monopod, but I'm going to start practicing a lot with monopod and see if I can get used to tracking, a bird on a monopod. Because when you're handheld, you're you're free motion, and I'm really good at tracking. When I was on a monopod, I was struggling a little bit, particularly when the bird dips down a little bit low. So if I'm doing kingfishers, I probably will do it handheld because they go high, then low, then back high again really fast. Swallows, that's going to have to be a handheld thing. But I think eagles and other larger birds of prey, hawks, herons, these kind of birds, I think will be better with a monopod. Certainly simpler things like land animals, monopod makes a lot of sense, but I don't get the opportunity to shoot land animals too often. But for birding, right now, I'm pretty comfortable shooting larger birds with a monopod. But I just started, so we'll have to say to be continued on that one. And Adam says, my photography is not that great. If only others were that self-aware. You and many myself included have really good photography with a purpose. Mine is to document our lives. Yeah. I thought that I saw some video once where the title was Why Good Photographers Think They're Great. I think it was by Tin House Studios. Or it might have been that other guy, Jamie Windsor. Or maybe they both have done stuff. But, like I went out to Meadowlark Gardens yesterday with David, and he snapped off some amazing pictures. And I'm like, I was there for hours, and all I got were a few flowers, fill the frame shots of interesting flowers, but nothing great. And he also got a great picture of a bee. And he probably got some great shots today at the track, better than mine. I don't know. I will say, I will say that my editing is better than David though. Um, but David and I are friends, so I can say that. But I think I'm a better editor than David because David takes better shots a lot of the times when we go out together. But then when I see the editing that he does on them, I'm like, oh, really, David? And then he'll say, yeah, I over sharpened it, or he'll say, yeah, I oversaturated. I'm like, yeah, you did. But David has a great Instagram account, um, and some great shots on there. He showed me a picture of a cormon, I don't know, some kind of bird. It's a little black bird with this hooked orange beak. And I got the shot, but he got a much better shot than I did. I'm a little jealous. And which stitching programs do you recommend? Okay, I use Huggin, Hugin. So to give you an example, uh, if you go to, let me see, this is my Flickr page. Let me see, Pano. I search for Pano. I have an album called Panoramas. Like this photo, I used Hugin, Huggin, to stitch this photo. Did a terrific job. Another one, I used Huggin to stitch this one. I used Huggin, or yeah, Huggin to stitch this one. That's not a, yeah, I used Huggin to stitch this. Huggin does a great job. I used Huggin on this one, I know I did. This one I also used Huggin. Well, no, this one I might have used Photoshop. Yeah, this one I used Photoshop. This one I used Photoshop. So, but those other ones that I showed you. So Huggin does a great job. So it's this one here. This software. Whoops. It's called Huggin Panorama Stitcher. If you just Google it, it'll come up. And then there's like 1,000 tutorials online for it. I might do one. You know, I'm not going to do like a thorough one. I'm just going to do, okay, I have these 3 images or I have these 9 images. So if I'm doing a single row panorama, I'll do one example that way. And then if I'm doing a multi-row panorama, typically I do 9 shots. I'll do one that way. I'll do those two for an example. Very streamlined, to the point type tutorial, but not an in-depth thing on Huggin, because Huggin has a billion options, right? But you know, just to get you started, I could probably do something like that. But I got 4 more products I have to finish reviewing before I can do any more tutorials. But I'll try and squeeze one in. Oh, your brain doesn't interpret as 34. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm kind of the same way. I think about things mostly in micro four third, you know, frame of field of view, right? So when I think of 17, I know what 17 millimeters is on micro four thirds. I think of it in that field of view. And then when I start using my full frame cameras or any other APS-C, whatever, I have to backtrack down to what the micro four thirds equivalent would be. So I'm always thinking in reverse. I know what you mean now. For our family and friends, my photography is excellent. In the big wide world, there's so many. Yeah, it's so true. Use Adobe Raw and Expert 6 TKD. Oh, you know, that's a good advice there. So I think this is in reference to Lightroom not being able to open up the DNG files, or I'm sorry, open up the raw files on the OM3. You can use, I think Adobe has a raw converter, Adobe DNG converter that's free. That that would be a great way to do it. And I haven't heard of this expert 6 TK DNG thing, but uh, Adobe RAW converter is free, and it'll convert it to a .dng. I think it might even convert to TIFF, but convert it to another format that Lightroom can use. I think the catch is if you convert it to TIFF, you won't be able to apply optical corrections, which is can be pretty big deal depending on the lens. But if you convert it to DNG, then I think the optical corrections can be applied in Lightroom, and then you'll be okay, 100%. I mean, some lenses don't need optical corrections; they're perfectly fine. But thank you for the reminder, David. I don't know why I took the hard way around. I made it harder than it needs to be. If you just convert to DNG, then Lightroom can edit those. So I mean, I'm just tired, I think. Darko says also when having an idea for a certain composition, you need to understand the light you want to see in the composition to the shadows that you envision. Yep. So like I said, for me, that's the first thing I look at is where's the light in the image. And Darko says crows are smaller than ravens. Okay. I'd have to see one side by side to get some perspective, though. And Darko says, on handheld video, Rob, do you use a cage of any sorts? And handle? No, I don't use anything. If I'm going to use anything, I'm going to if I'm not going to be handheld, I'll probably just be on a tripod. I don't do much videos, so but for my paid work, I do use a gimbal, like a real three-axis gimbal. I have a Weeble or I don't know. I have like three different gimbals, but it's just a basic three-axis gimbal. I'll use that, and a lot of times I'll put that on a tripod with rollers and roll that around. But most of the time, yeah, if it's just for vlogging and stuff, I just handhold. I don't use a cage. And for audio, I'll use a wireless mic like I have right now, right? I'll just plug in a wireless mic. I'm not really the vlogging video guy. And Gary says, I was thinking of getting a Deluxe 8 or maybe a 7 to save dollars. I want on everyday camera and I need an EVF live near quite a few beaches. Any thoughts? Okay, so the key difference between the Deluxe 8 and the Deluxe 7, or save even more money and get a Lumix LX100 Mark II. Okay, so these three cameras, the LX100 Mark II, the Deluxe 7, and the Deluxe 8, they are essentially the same exact camera. The key difference with the Deluxe 8 over the other two has USB-C, so you can charge in camera. You could do that with the other ones. Uh, but USB-C is a little more standard now, right? That's a minor thing. Another thing is the EVF. The EVF is a nice OLED display now. The other two cameras use like this LCD type display that some people have a problem with. I did not have a problem with it, but some people are very sensitive to the way the LCD works and the EVF on the other two cameras. And it's a deal breaker for a lot of people, unfortunately. It was not for me. I had no problem with it. But the OLED display in the Deluxe 8 is much better. That's the main difference. In terms of image quality, identical. I could not tell, using the standard natural profile on each camera, there's a natural profile setting on all of them. They are identical. I cannot tell any difference. Black and white, standard black and white, identical, because it's just subtracting the color information. Now, there's other settings for JPEG, other profiles that are some slight differences. The pixel for pixel, the raw image is identical in these three cameras. The autofocus, virtually identical. I'm not seeing any big improvement with the Deluxe 8 in terms of autofocus, even though they claim they did improve it. And maybe they did. And I'm not shooting enough with the Deluxe 8 to appreciate that. Honestly, I haven't shot enough with my LX100 Mark II to get a feel for the differences right now. But just picking up the camera, taking a few shots with each, I can't really tell any difference. Um, so ultimately, you can buy a LX100 Mark II for about $800. You can buy Deluxe 7, a little fancier if you get the silver one, if you like silver. But you can get a little fancier style and design. But functionally, menu-wise, everything's identical. Deluxe 7, LX100 Mark II, identical. Deluxe 8, much improved menu system, but very stripped down in features. So no focus stacking, I don't think. It's missing a ton of things, okay? I can't go into detail what they are right now, but it for a point and shoot and for all intents and purposes, it has everything you need to take a good photo in a very small, compact, light package. So here's my LX100 Mark II. with a half leather case. And I like to use tripod a lot. And here's my LX102 with a half leather case and a little bit of a grip here. This is a much better half leather case. But if you look at the top of these cameras, not too much difference. Couple extra buttons on the LX100 Mark II. And then you look at the back, right? Much simpler interface on the Leica. And then if I turn them on, let's see, the switch, this one uses a switch. Okay, so let me go into the menu and I'm going to push the menu. The first menu button takes you right to a super control panel of sorts, and it's touchscreen compatible, so I can touch anywhere. But the menu is much, much simpler. So I love both these cameras, even though in terms of image quality, identical. Autofocus performance. I'm going to say, for all intents and purposes, pretty much the same, even though it might be a little better on this. So they claim. I don't know. So my advice, I would get the Deluxe 8 of the three cameras you mentioned here for the EVF, for the USB-C, and simplified menu system. If you like to tinker and have every possible option and slice and dice the image every different possible way, the LX100 Mark II is your best value. It's your best value at $800 because you're going to pay about $1,000 for a Deluxe 7, and you're going to pay probably closer to $2,000 for a Deluxe 8. But the Deluxe 8 is going to be brand new with warranty. It's not going to have, it may even be sealed a little better for dust. I haven't had any dust problems with my LX100 Mark II, but all the parts are going to be new. If you buy a Deluxe 7 or an LX100 Mark II, it's already going to be 6 or 7 years old. So that could be an issue, right? Wear and tear and all of that. If you can find a used Deluxe 8 for around $1,500, I would get it. Otherwise, LX100 Mark II, your best bang for the buck. Deluxe 7 for a little more flash, meaning style, right? It's a little fancier camera in terms of looks, but they're all excellent cameras. But I like the Deluxe 8 the best right now because of the menu system and the EVF. I just like it the best. And I have the optional kit. This was on my LX100 Mark II. I put it onto my Deluxe 8. I need to go out and shoot with this some more. I probably have less than 100 shots on this right now. I probably only have maybe 1,000 shots on this one, but they're both excellent cameras. If you have any other questions about those, let me know. I'll try and answer them, but I haven't shot with them a whole lot. So I was surprised to find that Fuji is doing black point subtraction on its GFX100S sensor, which is the same as the GX100RF. So the ISO 80 is a gimmick, and base ISO is really 100. Oh, really? Now that would be an issue if they were telling people ISO is their base ISO, because base ISO should really be 100 if they're doing just some algorithm to get a lower ISO. That would be surprising. And what do you recommend brand-wise? I want to use my C50 Mark II. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, just handhold. You'll be all right. I don't know what the IBIS is like on the Z50 Mark II, but handhold, don't worry if there's a little bit of shake. in a vlog. It's a vlog. It's supposed to be shaky, right? I mean, don't make it jarring that people are gonna start having seizures, but yeah, if you vlog, it's okay if it's a little shaky. I mean, what's more important is the story and the content, not so much the quality of the video. And see, you fill the frame with unusual compositions, columns, and capture moments. Oh, okay. I try. I try, but that's my go-to composition is fill the frame. Because what I like in a photo, I mean, a lot of the photos are just because it's the time of year to do flowers. But a lot of what I like to do when I actually take some time to think about the composition, I like to include as much information as possible about the scene so that when you look at it, you can gather everything that's going on. Now, Peter Forsgard did a great video recently on street photography about, and I think there was another video to the same effect. James Popsis did one as well more recently, but James and Peter have both talked about this, about when a photo gives you more questions than answers, like why is the person there? Why is the person holding this item? Why are these two people talking? Like, and I think in James' video was something about the lighthouse, like he was cutting off elements of the lighthouse so that you don't know exactly what the roof looks like, the base, nothing, right? You just have the picture of the windows. Less is more. But the idea being is, you want to create a curiosity in your photos. So that's kind of going the exact opposite direction, creatively speaking, that I like. I like to include all the information possible. If I take a picture of a building, I want you to see the top to the bottom. I want you to see it all, you know? Uh, I don't want there to be any question about why did I take that picture. The why is all the information you need to know about why I took a picture is in the picture. But Peter and James, right? Their very recent videos have a very good point about, sometimes telling the story is not telling the story. It's about the curiosity and the information that's missing that you fill in with your own sort of imagination, the viewer's imagination. So, you can go either way. Like I said, don't ask me about creative choices. I can only regurgitate what I see, what everyone sees online or reads in a book, and then try to practice the techniques and the approaches that you like, that I like, right? I like as much information as possible to tell the person looking at my photo everything they could possibly want to know about what's going on, right? Uh, and why certain elements are there. So that's my direction. And so when I shoot birds, I give them room when they are flying or looking at something. Yep. So a little bit of negative space in the direction that they're flying is very common technique, right? So that you have some sense of um, motion, I guess is the way to put it. Because, but that's not to say that you can't do the opposite. So let me give you an example of what Randy's talking about, or what I think he's talking about. Um, where am I? Okay, this is not a bird in flight, but he's kind of looking over here to the right. So I'm leaving a lot of room on this side because the bird is kind of facing in that direction. Uh, Whereas in this photo, I'm not doing that. I just did a square frame. There's equal distance. But Randy typically likes, I think what he's implying is that he likes to leave a little bit more room on the left side, possibly, so that the bird is flying uh, into the scene and not out of the scene. Um, let's see if I have any other. I think this is a simple square crop. Square crop, yeah. So, we're back to my typical technique of just filling the frame, right? Um, but I'm going to give you not. It's not just birding, but see, my technique is very different. I just like to fill the frame. It's very, very, very common technique for me. But let me give you the opposite technique, right? Uh, let's see. Selfies. Yeah. Wow. Why'd all those nude selfies pop up? Anyway, sorry about that. I didn't think that would happen. Let me give you a good example, like this one. This is a selfie that I did. I think this is a nice image, even though I'm looking out of the frame. So this kind of goes in the direction of like, a little bit of curiosity. What am I looking at? Well, I'm looking at the sunset because you can see the light on my face. So I'm thinking about the lighting. So this goes back to my lighting. Also, I have my subject here in the foreground, which is me. And then in the midground, I have sort of these stones and water. And then in the background, I have this kind of a pier and this shoreline in the background with the sky. So I have all the elements here: foreground, midground, background. The subject's in the foreground. We have um, the opposite of what Randy was talking about, or what I was. Let me take Randy out of the conversation. But you did start this, I think. Uh, you have me looking out of the frame. So I am actually creating a little bit of curiosity about what am I looking at outside of the frame? What am I, you know what I mean? So so that I thought that was a good shot. Like this one here. Now I'm looking at you, right? But same compositional elements. Some people would argue I shouldn't have cut off the feet in this shot. Um, but when you're doing selfies on a tripod and it's freaking cold, you can't think of everything. I just didn't. I think it's fine without my feet showing, but I did. I you know. Uh, but if I were to do this over, I think my feet in the frame would have been nicer. Okay, that's that. Uh, the three cameras, magnificent. Oh, thank you. That must be the thumbnail for this video. Eric says, I have no certain style either. Not like we were going to become rich in our photography. It's an expensive hobby that we use as a visual day-to-day journal. Shoot how you like, exactly. Shutter therapy, as Robin Wong would say. Just go out and have fun. Enjoy your photography. When you feel like being creative and trying to create that epic image, that's a lot of fun too, even if you don't succeed, right? At least in your own eyes, right? Because think about all of the great photography that's been found after the photographers passed away that they never developed. Like Vivian Mayer didn't develop most of her rolls, and that's true for many other great photographers in the past. They find roll of film never developed because they were like, meh, just more the same of my stuff. But then other people look at it like, man, that was brilliant, right? But they didn't do photography for fame and fortune, a lot of them. They did it because they enjoy the craft, the process, all of that. And Darko says, what computer do you use for photo editing? How fast would you say in a minimum chip and motherboard combination and RAM do you need for 45 megapixel and up? Okay. I wouldn't let's not talk about minimums, okay? But let's talk about ideal. And let's avoid top of the line because top of the line is going to work, right? Clearly. If you spend a lot of money, it's going to edit fine. But let's talk about an ideal computer, like a good ratio of budget versus performance, right? What's a good sweet spot? Okay, as a minimum 16, but ideally 32 gig. 32 gig of RAM will be more than enough for most situations, especially if you do video. But even for photography, 32 gig gives the computer plenty of room to process layers, process the AI, whatever. 32 gig of RAM. Number two, dedicated or discrete. It's often called discrete video card because a lot of laptops have and computers, but mostly laptops have integrated video cards in the CPU. And to this day, I thought by now we'd have good integrated video capability, but we really don't. You need to get a discrete or separate video card in the laptop. And you want to go with NVIDIA. I know there's a lot of AMD fans out there. I can't speak to AMD video cards. So I'm not going to say don't get an AMD video card. I'm just telling you what I know. Telling you that I know NVIDIA is very good. At a minimum, or let me rephrase that. Ideally, I mean, any discrete NVIDIA card is fine. Ideally, you want to get an RTX 4060. RTX 4060. Now, there's different tiers of the RTX 4060, but ideally, any RTX 4060. There are some higher performance RTX 4060s. So if you see an RTX 4060 with something they call, I forget what it's called, but don't worry about it. Any RTX 4060 is fine. Okay, now, the next thing we need to think about, this is the least important, is the CPU. But ideally, you want to get the new Intel Ultra chipset, whether it's the i7, Ultra i7, or Ultra i9. Ultra i7 would be kind of the ideal budget to performance, and it has to have the letter H somewhere at the end. So Intel Ultra 7H, I think that's what it's called, or HS, or whatever. H stands for high performance. You want to get the H. So Intel Ultra 7H, Intel Ultra 9H, whatever. I may not have the exact order of the lettering and acronym correct, but look for Ultra, look for the digit 7 or 9, and look for the letter H. If you have those three things in the CPU, you're good. RTX 4060, Max, they have something called Max. If you see the word Max, if it's an RTX 4060 and you see the word Max, that's the lower spec one. If you don't see anything that says Max next to it, okay, let's leave, forget I said that. I can't remember the exact acronym for the lower. If Marco's still here, he can tell you exactly. There's a lower power 4060, there's a higher power one. Either one will do a great job for photo editing. Where we're talking about fractions of a second or 1 or 2 seconds difference between the two when it comes to editing photos. When it comes to video, you have to be a little bit more particular about all the specs. But for photo editing, this is the ideal spec. Ultra 7IH, Ultra 7I, i7H. Anyway, Ultra 7H, 32 gig, RTX 4060. Those are the three things. When it comes to brand names, stick to Dell, HP, Asus. Next tier would be Acer. Asus is really good. And MSI. I would put MSI last. Uh, they're the best deal though. They're cheap. They'll have all those specs and be hundreds of dollars cheaper. But usually it's the build quality is not quite as good as the other brands I just talked about. So number one, Dell, number two, HP. These two are really good. Number three, Asus, Acer after that, and then MSI. I would put kind of last, but not Not a deal breaker. If you're on a tight budget and you're not throwing your laptop around the living room, MSI is fine. If it's a desktop replacement, you just put on your desk, plug it in, you'll be fine. But if it's the kind of laptop that you're going to be traveling around with a lot, I'd probably go with Dell, or Asus is really well made. They're pretty solid. Don't ask me about Apple. I know nothing. Okay. Our world is chock full of compositions and moments. The gift comes in seeing them. That can be learned to some extent, but some people are just, yeah, some people are natural. I agree. Like I took my nephew out 10 years ago or whatever, longer than that. Gave him a camera, went out and shot. He took great pictures for his first time ever using a camera. He's a natural. He hasn't followed up with that since then, but he's a natural. And the great Vanzini, she does interesting work. Yeah, that lady is very interesting. Anya. And Robin says, "Hi, Robin, everyone. I went to the Osprey Nest this morning and met a man from Jersey who was coming back from Conowingo. Not much action there today. First time in 4 years I met anyone at the nest." Oh, wow. Uh, and yet, Rob, I follow you for your photographs, not your gear talk. Really? I'm very flattered. And Darko says, "I know that your technical mind would find creativity easy to do on just the mindset you have taken to preconceptualized idea. You would be able to edit and create it with new skills, with the skill." I don't know. It's tough, man. Uh, and Barry, good to see you. Hello. And Shri is here. How you doing, Shri? Good to see you. And thank you for using my affiliate link for the eBay purchase. I did get credit for that. Thank you so much. Um, it's about lens equivalence. Yes. Yes. You and I are on the same page. I think Micro Four Third terms first now. Because I shoot with it most of the time. Why would I think about Micro Four Thirds and convert it to full frame when I'm shooting Micro Four Thirds most of the time, right? And Eric says, "Question, Rob, on my latest Flickr post, is there ways to post them to show up bigger in Flickr? It comes up as small thumbnail image unless you click on it." No, not that I know of. Yeah, sorry, Eric. I mean, is my Flickr page doing something different than yours? If that's the case, then maybe I can look at my settings and we can compare notes. But as far as I know, it's pretty much standardized. Flickr controls the size and output. Okay, gimbal mounted on a tripod. That makes sense. So you have very fluid action, right? On a gimbal. And you can sit down and have a coffee while you take photos. Anthony says, Tullingate, Newfoundland is the iceberg capital. May is generally the best time here to see icebergs. Okay. I doubt I'll ever go up there. I don't like the cold. I will fly or go or travel to a warmer place, but I will not travel to a cold place on purpose. And Dave says, "I can get a little lazy." Yeah, lazy. I get it. I get it. Let me tell you, that day I shot JPEG only at the Burnside Gardens with the tulips and things. That's actually kind of a godsend because, like, I didn't have to edit nothing. All I had to do is just crop it a little, maybe, and that was it, and post it. And CMAL Gates says, "Can we talk about bracketing for a minute? The OM one has almost every kind of bracketing, even R filter bracketing, but not see the one I want. Program back, same exposure at different f-stops." Oh, okay. Hmm. So you're talking about aperture bracketing. I thought it had that, but I know it has ISO bracketing. Where's my OM1? Okay. Let's see. The OM1. Let me go into my dying eyes. I'm tired, so they're even blurrier than normal today. And I'm dehydrated. Let's go into here, bracketing. Okay, so the way you would do it, let me see if there's any other choices here. All right, so you have to pre-plan a little bit, but you can do f-stop bracketing. So first, you want to go into shooting menu number 2, like I have here, and go into AE bracketing, right? And then turn that on. And let's do 3 stops at 1 EV. Gosh, there's not a lot of choices there, is there? So you can do 3 stops, or I'm sorry, 3 frames at 1 stop, 5 frames at 1 stop. So you pick one of those. All right. Then you want to go into shutter priority mode. Okay? So shutter priority mode. And then you want to pick an ISO. And that's what I mean. You have to think a little bit ahead of time. But you want to pick an ISO. You want to lock the ISO to. So right now, ambient light is telling me. So once you pick your shutter speeds, let's say 1/125th of a second, and you want to start at f4, and you want to bracket f2.8, and you also want to bracket f4 and f5.6, right? Because it's 3 frames, 1 stop, so it'd be 2.8, f4, and f5.6 at 1/125th of a second. So you also have to lock your ISO. So right now the camera is telling me I'm at ISO 2000 for 1.8. That's because I'm indoors, right? So it's pretty dark here. Let me point it at the light. Okay, I'm at ISO 200. Sorry. Right now I'm at ISO 200 f8. So I'm going to set the ISO to uh, ISO. I'm just not getting that. Okay. I'm at ISO 100 f8 1/125th of a second. So if I push the shutter button now, I should get 3 pictures, one at f5.6, one at f8, and one at f11, all at 1/125th of a second, ISO 100. So I'm going to do that. So let's see if that's what I got. I did. So here it is, right? Let me see if that'll focus. So there's one shot, f5.6, f11, f8. So that's one way to do it. The trick is, right, is if you want to get the same exposure at different f-stops, that would be hard. You'd have to do that manually. You'd have to go into manual mode and just watch your exposure meter. But doing it that way gives you plus or minus 1 at the 3 different f-stops. But I think you want to get the same exposure with different f-stops rather than a plus or minus 1 exposure, right? That I don't think can be done unless you do it manually yourself, right, in manual mode. Trying to think if there's any way to do this. Ah, you can do it. Let me see. No, no, that wouldn't work. You have to be in shutter priority. You have to lock your ISO, because otherwise it's gonna bounce the ISO around and not the aperture, right? Because if I put this in auto ISO, let me see what happens. Yeah. I'm gonna look one more time. I'm sorry for taking so much time on this, but this is a really good question. Let me see. So auto exposure bracketing. So CMOC 8, uh, same exposure. You said right in your question, same exposure. So let's see if there's maybe a semi shortcut. Let me put this in manual focus. No, I don't see any automated way to do it. You would have to just go into manual mode and do it yourself. So you would go into manual mode and either change the shutter speed or aperture, change the shutter speed or ISO as you're changing your aperture. Yeah, that should be something they should add though, right? Maybe in a future firmware. I seriously doubt it. I'm sorry about that, CMOC. I don't see a way to do it. I didn't answer your question properly because I assumed it was for exposure bracketing, not just the aperture, but same exposure. Can't think of anything that would do it. Okay. I don't see a way to do it otherwise. The closest I can come to is exposure bracketing at ±1, where the aperture will change. I use a Weeble S gimbal. Yeah, I think I have a Weeble. I think. I don't remember. I have a Manfrotto. I have another one. I think is a Weeble, and then I have an older Zion, June or whatever. So I rarely use a battery with the OM1 to justify the need for a grip. Yep, it's pretty rare, and it's easy enough to swap batteries when it's time, right? I would only use a grip like at an event where I do a lot of vertical for portraits. Like I did this one event where 80% of the portraits were vertical. And in that case, a grip would have been much easier to use than turning like this, right? Going to watch your BitFizz today. Okay, cool. You never stop learning. We never stop, all of us, right? None of us should ever stop learning, ever. And Gordon, hi Rob, late to the show. Curious now that you have the OM3, do you use your EM53 much? As I recall, the OM1 was your wildlife largely, but for fun, you took the EM53. Is the OM3 small? Yes. The OM3 is my go-to camera now. It has replaced my Pen F and the M5 III. My M5 Mark III is now used for the live streaming that you see here. And my EM10 Mark II has been kind of retired. It's still sitting over there, in case I do want to do a live stream, like 2 angles. But it's a shame because the M5 III deserves better than being a webcam. But I just have too many cameras. I'm a collector. Okay. Right now I have one custom setting for BIF, but I might separate BIF and birds on a branch. Yes. You don't need to really separate BIF. All you need to do is assign, because really the only difference between bird bird on a stick, right? Birds in flight versus bird on a stick is the focus points. So bird on a stick, I use a small focus point. For bird in flight, I use all focus points. And you can switch that with the switch. You don't have to change anything else really. We can get into the fine print, bird on a stick, you can use a slower shutter speed. And that would be it. But, you know, you can quickly just dial in. You should be in shutter priority anyway when you're talking about birds in flight. Flipping to a smaller focus point and turning 1 or 2 clicks to lower the shutter speed on the dial should be fine. And then, but what I do have a separate custom setting for is Pro Capture. Because a lot of times bird on a stick, I don't want just the bird on the stick, I want the bird flying off of the stick. In which case, I have Pro Capture as like custom 2 or whatever. So when I want to do that, I switch to custom 2, but I'm still using all points, and I'm still using 1/2000th of a second, because if the bird's going to fly, it's going to be moving. You want to freeze that motion. The only difference being is I'm using Pro Capture instead of continuous shutter. Also might set up an Astro custom setting. I don't think you need to do that. Astro is very methodical. So you should really take your time in the field and do the Astro settings and set them up, because it's going to vary depending on lens. Your lens is going to be the biggest variable. How fast is your lens? Because sometimes you want to use a telephoto lens, sometimes a mid-range. They're all going to have different apertures. And that's going to affect your shutter speed. The ambient lighting is going to affect, light pollution is going to affect. There's too many variables for, I think, astrophotography to have a custom setting. And you're usually not in a hurry with astrophotography at night. You can take a few minutes and set the settings exactly the way you want them. So maybe just have a checklist. Okay, do I have Starry Sky F turned on? Do I know the what shutter speed I need to use with this particular field of view or millimeter focal length, right? Based on this whatever calculator. Are you going to use the rule 200 rule, the 500 rule? Generally, I recommend just using the 200 rule. All these things come into play. Just have a checklist. That might be easier, but after a while, you pretty much get a feel for, what your settings need to be. Because wide field astrophotography is pretty straightforward, but you just have to think about the length of the shutter speed versus the focal length so you don't get eggshells. And then think about the ISO setting you're going to use. Generally, you want to try and stick to around 1000 ISO for astrophotography. That is your best signal to noise ratio for, low light. I mean, your best signal to noise ratio is ISO 200, but for low light, you need to be at faster the shutter speeds are going to be so long, you can't shoot at ISO 200. So you need to be at about ISO 1000, and don't stray off too much from that. Maybe 1100 or 1200, but et cetera, et cetera. Okay. On narrowband channel, he states that the OM1 is much better faster than the X. Oh, okay, yeah. I would believe anything Ben says. Ben knows his Astro, that's for sure. And And is there a way to send you a photo I found online to comment on? Yeah, just go, every Friday I do a photo editing live stream. You can submit it there and just change the file name to say, instead of sending me the file with the original file name, change the file name to say critique, and then I can give you my opinion, and then I can try and edit it too if you want. Every Friday I do that. So start looking for it on Wednesday or Thursday, the live stream video, and you'll see links down there to submit your images. Then on Friday, I go live with that. And to the left is not empty space. Okay, that must be referring to one of the photos I was showing earlier. Let's see. And let's see. And right along says, I use a laptop with the NVIDIA GTX 980. So see, the NVIDIA discrete video card does a lot of the heavy lifting. The GTX 980 is a little bit old. And the Intel i7, you got the HK, so that's a desktop. This looks like, oh, no, but you said it's a laptop. So you're using a laptop, but you got an HK chipset. That's interesting. I thought the letter K was generally a desktop laptop or CPU. But anyway, uh, I mean that's not bad, right? Um, but yeah, it might be time to upgrade. They're what called our designer laptops. Okay. I got for 350 the computer with 24 gig of RAM, a Ryzen 5. Okay. The Radeon RX 50. Oh, the Radeon 5600. I heard a lot of good things about, and a 2 terabyte SSD. I'm not familiar with the Ryzen 5 series, but if it has a Radeon 5600, that's a little bit of a high-end laptop, or mid-range, right? It's not entry level, so you should be good. But I've never edited with the Radeon GPU, so I can't speak to how good or bad it is. And my chat jumped all the way up again, so I'm gonna have to go to the bottom and go back up. Holy crap. I was dehydrated and very tired once. I wound up spending 3 days in the hospital. Holy crap. Yeah, I'm gonna trust me, I'm gonna finish this plus another glass. So that's gonna be, 2 this is about 1 liter, right? So I'm gonna have 2 liters. I'm sorry. This plus 1 more glass would be 1 liter. And then, so I'm gonna have at least 1 liter. I've had at least 1 liter today, earlier before I left. And then if I can, I'll try and drink another half liter. You generally wanna get about 2 to 3 liters a day. Okay. I'm not that dehydrated. I mean, I did drink coffee, and then I had a coffee in the morning. I had a coffee for breakfast again. So I had 2 coffees in the morning. Then I didn't drink anything until I got home. That's a little rough. But now, just that little bit of water there, my voice has cleared up a little. When I started, it was a little bit hoarse. So I recently quit using auto ISO, went to old school film thinking, quite fun. Yep. Um, I do that once in a while, but not very often. I just go with auto ISO. So I also use the FN leader as a power on off. Yeah, it's a trade-off. You can you can you can just assign a custom button or feature or on the mode dial, use one of the custom modes, but you only have four on the OM1. So having dedicating two custom modes to two virtually identical settings seems like a waste to me. Uh, but I get it. A lot of people like that on-off switch, but I don't really need to power the camera on and off with the lever. I'm fine with it being on the left side, especially if you're just sitting in at home with a gimbal. You don't really need the lever. You might as well use it for. And Ivan says, "Hello, what kind of lens do you recommend for selfies with the EM10 Mark IV?" Just the kit lens, 14 to 42 kit lens. That's what I use 90% of the time. I mean, if you're talking about like waist up type photos and you're hand holding like this, you have to be at least 14 millimeters, which is the kit lens. Um, and the kit lens is at f3.5 at 14 millimeters. So it's wide enough, it's fast enough, and ideally you have it already with the camera. If you have to buy a lens, maybe buy the 15 millimeter f1.7 from Panasonic, or buy the 12 millimeter f2 from Olympus. These are two very good selfie lenses as well. If we're talking about arm's length type selfies, if we're talking about on a tripod, definitely a kit lens is fine, or the 12 to 45 Pro lens, either one. That way you can adjust it, right? The focal length to what you need, depending on how much you want to cover in the selfie. Full body, waist up, head up. Zoom lens will give you that flexibility for handheld. And tripod, you know, again, a zoom lens gives you the flexibility, full body, waist up, etc. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people like to use the function lever as a power switch just for this reason, be able to just bring it up and start the camera, right? Um, but I tend not to turn the camera off once I turn it on. So, because the battery life's so good anyway, I don't generally turn the camera on and off. It's almost always on. I just have to wake it up by pushing the shutter button. Oh, the double East one dot sight. Yep. A lot of people like that thing. Um, I never got along with the two. I tried one for a little while. I just never got used to it. I tend to, if I'm outdoors, I tend to use just the hot shoe here, like this, and then I look at the barrel of the lens and I line up these two, and then I follow the bird, and then I follow the bird like this, and then I take the picture. Uh, I've gotten pretty good at doing it that way. I mean, there's a tiny bit of parallax error, but once you get a feel for it, it's not a big deal. Oh, that reminds me, yeah, the Lenovo ThinkPads are very good laptops. Lenovo is right up there with Asus. They just have a very different. They put a lot of their ports on the back, so I think Lenovo laptops are best for desktop replacement type scenarios. Um, and if you can get a good deal on one, they're as good as any of the others. But I think Dell and HP have the best customer service. So I hear. I've never called customer service in my life, but uh, I'd get a Frameworks laptop as you can upgrade the motherboard. The new one with the AMD 370 would be amazing. Intel has been way behind for years and they're just barely catching up. See, Mark, the good news is though that for photo editing, the CPU is not that critical. It's mainly the discrete GPUs. So, but the Frameworks is interesting, right? It's modular and you can upgrade individual pieces. Uh, I just think, well, I won't say too much about Frameworks. I think it's a very interesting design, though. And if that design works for you in the way you like to own gear, right, or equipment that's modular, that makes the most sense. For me, I went top of the line. I bought an Acer Predator, which was top of the line at the time, Core i9 13900HX, uh, RTX 4080. I couldn't afford the 4090, so I'm not really top of the line, but I got the 4080, and I got two SSDs in there, one 4 TB, one 2 TB, et cetera, et cetera. It was the best I could afford. It was like $2,600 at the time. They have much more expensive laptops, but that was the best I could afford. So I didn't get the best bang for your buck, that's for sure. But I got the best I could afford. But those are some good points. The framework can work better for some people because of its modular design and the ThinkPad. So Mark knows his laptops. Let's leave it at that. Uh, see if I missed anything else. Yeah, no, my bad. It doesn't bracket with proper exposure. Just checked. Okay. And Randy's gone. Okay, Randy, thanks for stopping in. Uh, does aperture priority work? You set the aperture you want to start bracketing from shutter speed adjust every shot. No. No, you would just have to go into, if we're talking about keeping the same exposure at different f-stops, the only way to do it is manually. Do it yourself. You'd have to put it in manual mode. I assume that's what we're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so lost in the chat. I think I got everything. Neat trick for f-stop bracketing locking ISO. Thanks, Rob. I assume if you shoot an aperture priority to auto expose the right exposure. No, because yeah, the aperture wouldn't change. You're an aperture priority. Okay. So that explains your other comment. And focus stacking does the same thing for aperture. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Shri. This chat, I gotta figure out how to make the chat not scroll so that I can go one by one by one. Once I figure that out, we'll be in good shape. Thanks. Yes, with a tripod, and I do have, yeah, so you're all set, Ivan. If you go to my selfies page on my Flickr page, most of those were done with the kit lens. So, okay, that was with the 25, 25. Okay, I did a lot of these with the 25. But this one's with the 14 to 42. That's the 14 to 42 kit lens. So this is a Pen F and a kit lens, Pen F and a kit lens, Pen F and a kit lens. All of these with me in a coat. This one is with a kit lens, I believe. Yep. 14 to 42, 14 to 42. Again, yep, 14 to 42. All of these. These are all kit lens photos. This one, I don't think so. Let me see. Well, this is a kind of a kit lens. It's the 12 to 32 Panasonic kit lens. Uh, yep, 12 to 32 kit lens, kit lens, kit lens. Yeah, these are all kit lens shots. This is the Sony kit lens, 16 to 50 kit lens, kit lens. I don't, oh, this is a 28 millimeter lens. This was a special shot. Okay. But a lot of kit lens. It's good enough. So the other lens I used a lot was the 25 millimeter f1.4. That's also good, but you need a little more distance, right? With a kit lens at 14 millimeters, you can be pretty close. And yes, still live. What did you miss? You missed so much laptop talk, Marco. We missed you. You didn't miss anything. We missed you. Oh, I'm sitting there blowing smoke about laptops the best I can. And hopefully I gave decent advice, but it would have been nice if you could have answered them directly. Said I never knew the hot shoe trick. That is an awesome idea. Biff, thanks to Rob Trek here. It's nothing new. I can't remember where I learned that, but yeah, you use the hot shoe like when I look and then I got the barrel of the lens. So I line up the tip of the barrel of the lens with the hot shoe, and then a little practice, you get good at it. Okay, what adapter for Olympus lenses from OM to MTF would you recommend for the Mark IV? I'm not familiar with MTF, but if M, let me just look. Uh, M4. Well, let's assume you made a typo. Maybe you meant MFT, like micro four thirds, right? Uh, excuse me. Any cheap adapter is fine. I bought the FOTGA, FOTGA. Let's see. Let me just do a quick look. Okay, so there's a bunch here, right? Here's a K&F one for $28. That's fine. Photodiox for $25. Do not spend $65 for an adapter. Photocy, there you go, $13. I'm pretty sure that's the one that I use. $13.79 on Amazon by Photocy. Oh, see, look, you can even see I've purchased a lot of these 4 times. Uh, this is perfectly fine. This it's the one that I've bought and used many times. Now, I assume you mean OM like vintage lenses, like for the old film cameras, the OM system film lenses. That's what that adapter's for. Marco says 18-inch laptop with RTX 5090, 64 gig RAM, and 4 terabyte SSD red zero. Okay, so let me clarify the question. Uh, we're not looking for entry-level budget laptops, but I also wanted to exclude top-tier laptops like the one you're putting here. What I wanted to do is get the best bang for the buck type laptop. So I recommended 32 gig, RTX 4060, and an Ultra i7H with, you know, I didn't mention SSD, but at least 2 terabytes. That would be a very good bang for the buck laptop that should do most things well. Okay. And then I was very clear. If you buy a top tier laptop, it's going to work great. I mean, we don't have to talk about it. If you spend the money, you'll get a good laptop. Okay, and Randy, you're back. How you doing, Randy? How about an OM1X? I would be there in a heartbeat. Yeah, I think Anthony would love an OM1X also. And is it worth jumping to a 4080 graphics card to the new 5000? Okay. See, Marco, we need to do whatchamacallit, a stream together. We've been talking about it all year. I know you're busy moving and settling, so but when you're free again, let me know. And Rob Trey, your laptop advice has been spot on, more than enough for most people. Okay, thanks. Lawrence says, buy an iMac. Perfect. Sure, why not? But don't buy it on my advice. I mean, I'm not saying don't buy it. I'm just saying I don't know. And Mark said, I'd argue display quality is even more important and a laptop with 2 terabyte SSD slots. Okay, now we're getting into the weeds, right? Two things, yeah. An extra SSD slot is definitely very nice to have. Number two, removable RAM, so you can upgrade it later, right? Unless you buy it with 32 gig. But if you buy a 16 gig laptop, make sure you can upgrade it to 32 gig because some laptops, uh, the RAM is soldered in and you can't add more memory. You're capped. So removable RAM, extra SSD slot, Thunderbolt 4, USB-C, and a nice to have, which is hard to find these days, a full SD card slot, full size SD card slot. If you're lucky, you'll get a micro SD card slot, but if you find with a full size SD card slot. And then speaking of display, any IPS panel is going to be fine. You calibrate it using one of those calibration devices, and you're going to be 99% there with sRGB, right? However, if you want a nicer display, the price exponentially goes up. Okay, that's all I can say. You want a very bright IPS, P3 compatible color space, or even 99% Adobe RGB color space. You know, just that is one area laptops. There's no compromise. Okay, uh, you pay for what you get in the display. So I'll give you an example, like the Dell Inspiron laptop. Excellent specs, excellent price, decent build quality. Display, meh. Yeah, it's probably 100% sRGB. It's an IPS panel, but it doesn't get terribly bright. But it's good enough for working indoors. Outdoors, in the shade, maybe you can get by. But it's not going to be fun. HP has very, very nice bright displays with P3 color space, and Uh, well, refresh rate's still 60 hertz, but it'd be nice if we can get 120 or faster for smoother mouse action and stuff. Okay, the catch is you have to adjust the brightness from outside to inside. You never want to work on an image at a very high brightness indoors, okay? You're going to set it down to something even lower, even on the Dell laptop, which doesn't have a very bright display. You're going to lower the brightness anyway when you're indoors because you want to edit edit the image in a way that when you print it, it looks the same printed as it does on your screen, more or less. It's always going to be brighter on your screen than when you print it. But generally speaking, most photo editors work at about 100 nits, give or take, between 80 and 120. I typically work at 100 nits, maybe 120. I like a little brighter display, but I know when I print it's going to be a little bit darker than it looks on my screen. As long as you're aware of what's going on, right? And your calibrations between everything. But the Dell laptop is around 200 to 300 nits. I think the spec is 300, but in practice, 2 to 300. The HP is like 400 nits. It's probably a little bit brighter than that, closer to 500 nits in real life. And then there's OLED displays with super high contrast. There's IPS panels with 2001. I mean, display, display, display. We could go on and on. There's 10-bit displays that are not true 10-bit, but fake 10-bit, but effectively the same. There's so there's OLED, there's IPS, and then there's TN panels. That's for gaming mostly. Those have the very high fast refresh rates for very poor viewing angles. So you always have to be working straight on like this if you're editing photos. So that's why I say get an IPS display. It's going to be easier on your eyes, decent enough contrast. It's the worst contrast of all the panels, but it's good enough. And it's going to generally have the most accurate color. All right. But yes, Mark brings up some valid points if we really want to get into the weeds. But I argue with a laptop, if you're using it as a desktop replacement, always buy a monitor separately, a 27-inch, 32-inch monitor to edit your photos on your laptop. So build that into the cost of any laptop you buy, your laptop plus a monitor, especially if you're working at home a lot. If you're working on the go a lot, you're packing your laptop with you and going places, then yes, pay a lot of attention to the display. It's going to be critical. IPS panel, 2001 contrast, at least a 400 nit brightness. So those are going to be your HDR 400. If you see the spec HDR 400 on the display, you're good to go. If you see P3 or Adobe RGB color space, you're good to go. If you're traveling a lot, if you're at home a lot, budget a separate monitor for your laptop. And yes, Marco has a website, hothardware.com, and a YouTube channel, Hot Hardware, that you can go and look at all the reviews. Marco is an avid photographer as well, so you can always ask him a question in the context of photo editing and photography. That's going to be the key difference between a lot of other well, that's not the key difference, but that's an important difference between the advice Marco gives you, because he has very specific experience in this area, right? Photography and computers and their relationship with the photographer and editing software. He has all of that in his answers. When he answers you, all of that's going to be in context of that. Number two, Marco and his team will actually answer your questions. Okay? So that's another that's a key difference. Just like I always try to answer your questions. How many YouTubers can you go to and ask a question, they actually answer you straight up? Not that many, right? Well, I haven't run into them, but I don't get like 1,000 comments and questions on every video. I'm lucky to get 5 or 6 comments and maybe 1 question. So I'll get like 4 negative comments and 1 question on a video. So if I start getting thousands of comments and questions on my videos, yeah, then I could probably argue, don't ask me, I'm not gonna get to it. There's just too many. But as it is now, this little tiny space that I have here on YouTube, I always do my best to answer your question. Uh-oh, the fruit computer discussion has emerged. Not betting Rob will take a bite of the app. I will not. And Marco, yeah, Marco's sharing. Like I said, Marco, everything I said about Marco holds true of his whole team, right? They're all just like we talked about top tier laptops. These are top tier reviewers, top tier people in general. An EGA monitor. You're funny. EGA. And Randy says, I do mine on a 40-inch, 8-inch TV in my living room. That is cool. That is cool. And Roberto's here. Roberto Di Donato. Good to see you, buddy. You and Jerry. Sorry I haven't said hello yet. I think I saw one of your comments earlier and I missed it. And Ivan says, would you recommend a camera clip to clip the camera on your belt or backpack, something like the V3 camera mount by Peak Design? It's more convenient when you travel or a waste of money. A lot of people like them, but I don't recommend it if you have a plastic body camera like the EM5 Mark III, OM5, EM10. These plastic body cameras have plastic bases and they're not very strong. Doesn't have to be just an Olympus OM system camera, any plastic camera. The base plate is not great and it's going to wear out and break. If you have an OM1, I think you'll be okay. I haven't heard any complaints about that. OM1, EM1, you're okay. I don't use them myself. I prefer a strap. Uh, I've always used the strap. I've never liked to hand hold a camera without a strap in case I drop it right out of my hand. Uh, some people like just to use a wrist strap, but I always use 2 hands on my camera as much as I can, and I always have a strap so I can just let go of the camera, let the camera rest on my chest. Um, it's just what I'm used to. I don't like the idea of clipping things on a strap or on my belt and walking around in something because, if you bump into something, it's gonna put stress on the base plate of your camera, and I've seen metal base plates break too, So I don't like the idea of clips personally, but a lot of people like them. I don't like them, but I see everybody out there with them, like James Popsis, he's got that big camera and lens strapped to his chest on his backpack. I can't do that. Um, I just prefer a strap. Lauren keeps talking about the Mac. The Mac all-in-one color calibrated 4.5K display, reasonable price, 24 inches, my minimum viewing and editing. Yep, at least 24-inch, that's true. Mac Mini is brilliant. Small, quiet, runs cool, and fast like an i9. Yes. Uh, I've heard lots of good things about the Mac. As many of you know, I just don't buy Mac products if I can help it. I had to make one exception 4 years ago. I bought an iPad. But other than that, and that was because there was one app that I needed that I couldn't get on Android. Wasn't for that, I will never buy a Mac product for personal reasons. Nothing to do with the quality of the product. They make great products. I'm not going to argue about products. They make fabulous products, but I have a personal problem with that company that I need to let go of one day. Camera Conspiracy needs to watch that Apple video. What Apple video? Says, I think I am cooped. Have a great week. Oh, yeah, I'm tired too. Man, it's Sunday evening, isn't it? It's time to go. Regarding editing of your pictures, what do you prefer, Photoshop or Affinity? I use DxO, Photo Lab. But if I had to choose between those two, I would take Photoshop because I know how to use it. But Affinity, if I was on a budget, Affinity can probably do everything I would do in Photoshop anyway. But Photoshop's a much more powerful software overall. Also, got flames with drifting with the. Yeah, I gotta go. What time is? Oh, man, it's 2.5 hours into this. So you guys, thanks so much for joining me today. You guys have a great rest of your weekend or Sunday, whatever day it is, wherever you are, whatever time. Thank you so much for being here. I will be back on Tuesday for another photo chat and a little bit of shopping. I like to do a little shopping and photo chat on Tuesdays too. So God willing, we'll all be here. I hope to see you again soon. You guys have a great week. Oh, wait, one more question from Steve. I'm using DxO5 and I'm thinking of upgrading 8.5. Wait for 9. Wait for 9.0 always. It's right around the corner. Well, it's what, April now, end of April now. So it's May. So May, June, July, August. August there'll probably be some September. 6 months. Every Black Friday, October, November, they release the latest DxO. It's better to wait. That's my strong advice to you. Just wait. Okay. See you guys.